So your feet are not gripping on his lower body at all.
No, it's just my calf. And that just takes a lot of muscle. Good. Good. Yeah.
So what is the benefit of the 2-point?
Okay, so let me turn. Let me canter one more side, and I will talk to you about it. Now look at his trot. That's better. No. So I didn't ask for that. So I'm just gonna calmly bring him back down there. Good. There's your trot. Okay, so he already knows this is cool. Got to be able to see. There. I'm going to bend it to the outside. Get that shoulder back in line. There we go. There.
See, it's hard for me to even try anything like that because I'm just trying to keep him, you know, I'm just trying to get in the canter.
Good boy. And we go forward. There.
Since you're not using your seat for impulsion, what are you doing with your thighs? Are you squeezing and releasing?
Let me, I can't hear you actually. Hold on just a sec. Good boy. Now look at his shot. So that is what happens when he accepts the inside leg. See how free he is now?
Yeah.
Confused, but that's okay. Good. Okay. We'll let him stretch. Slow him down a little bit. There. There. Gonna ask for that cadence we talked about, for the exact football placement. And the only way to do that is to slow it down. Good. Good. To teach them.
Not the whole time.
Oh. Okay, so the reason why I get into 2-point in the canter is because, one, you want to stay off their back when they're young, especially in the canter, because when we put a lot of weight on their back, it's a lot harder for them to push through behind. The other reason is it forces us to always keep our lower leg on and to help them more. You know, it allows us to drop the leg down and to keep that calf on and to keep them bending around the inside leg. And what's great about the canter is because it is the highest gait. So when he wants to do his little, you know, when he's trotting, he tries to canter if he doesn't understand something. Well, on the canter, he's already cantering. So he has to listen even more because I'm really not taking my leg off now, you know? It's constant until he does listen. And then I take it off and that's telling him, okay, I did it right. And then I put it back on again and then I take it off.
So when you're in the 2-point and you're cantering, since you're not using your seat,
Yeah.
are you squeezing and releasing with your calf?
Right, because you know how in the 2-point you have the natural up and down motion of the spring because of your
Yes.
knee?
Yeah.
Okay, so every up and down, when they come up, and you can see when their mane comes up, that is when they're loading behind, and that is when you're doing your most squeezing, is when the hind leg is being loaded, meaning the right hind, because that is the most effective way of aiding is when they have, you know, their loading leg on the ground. You're not loading, you're not asking anything when their legs are off the ground, because they can't do anything, their legs are up off the ground. So that's like when we talk about timing, it's the same thing, you know, especially in the canter too, because once again, the canter is a 3-beat, and their loading leg, their first leg they canter with is actually their outside hind. And then their inside hind and their outside front come down, and then they finish with their inside front leg. So your loading gait is when that right hind is down and he's up. That is when you ask for more. You say, no, I want you to come up more. You know, that's when you're asking for all your aiding. Because that's when they're going to hear you and be able to do it.
Now that's just something that comes with
Feel.
feel.
When you learn how to, the more you ride, the more feel you develop.
Mhm.
And that is probably the most challenging for anybody, is developing feel for that loading leg in the canter. And actually in the walk is really difficult to know when to push and when to not.
Can you explain that?
Well, because in the walk, it has its own sequence. You know, each footfall has its own sequence, and they're so close together that their hind end, when their hind end comes forward, you can actually feel it in the saddle.
Right.
It'll send your one side of your hip forward a little bit, but it's so slight, you know, that you have to really learn how to feel it and pay attention to it. Because once again, when that hind leg is coming forward, again, that's when you're doing your aiding. Because if you're not aiding on the forward, you know, when they're coming forward, you're never going to be able to get them to come under and come around.
Okay, so when their back hip is coming forward, that's when you squeeze on their side?
Yeah.
On that side?
On that side. Because you're asking, and it's really hard. I wish I did a better job explaining it, because I've never had to explain that. It's just something that it's developed for so many years.
Because I was always told to do it on one shoulder or the other, and it's always been a thing of watching the shoulder rather than a feel from behind.
Yeah, and it's really more behind, because you're always controlling the haunches and the shoulders. You're managing the shoulders and controlling the hind. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because you have to bring, in certain movements, you have to bring the shoulder over. But in all movements, the hind end has to stay where you put it. And you're controlling the speed too. You know, the hind end, that's how you control the speed. Your rein is basically when that hind end comes forward and when it's loading, like I said, so in the trot, when both our feet are down, that's when you're loading for the next elevation to come up. And that's when you're giving your half halts, because if you half halt him and on the opposite side, if It's actually easier in the trot because it is a 2 beat. So there's 2 feet always on the ground and it's much easier to develop the timing for it. So basically, you can watch the shoulder in the trot a little bit, but you don't, I mean, not to teach it, that makes sense. Because in the trot, when one of their shoulders is up, that's when you're half halting. Same in your posting. Come on. There. He still is. Yeah, up there. He knows we're talking, so he's just like, I'm going to hang out with you.